It's been a couple days since I saw Deadpool and Wolverine, so I've had a little bit of time to think on it, and so let's talk about what I thought about it. Overall, I think it's a fun watch, but honestly, if you really take a look at it beyond the surface level, the narrative is a complete mess. Now, honestly, I'm not going into a Deadpool movie, which is essentially a spoof, expecting the story to be amazing. I'm not expecting Captain America Civil War level writing. But I feel like they could have tried a little bit harder on the story. Let's go over the good first of this movie. The things I liked about it, and of course we're going to go straight into spoilers because it's been out a couple days. Obviously, the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman is amazing. That's what everyone's here for, right? To see Wolverine and Deadpool interact. Hugh hasn't missed a beat since Logan. He's still just as great as, well, this version of Wolverine. It's not the Logan Wolverine, as evidenced by the beginning when Deadpool is using his dead body as a weapon. That opening might, as good as Deadpool 1's opening was, I think this opening might be my favorite. Despite having the TVA involved, which I will get more into. But Ryan Reynolds is just as great as ever as Deadpool. Hugh Jackman's still killing it as Wolverine. That's why you go and see this movie. And you had all those cool little Easter eggs to references to comic covers where they were going through all the different Wolverines. Like you had the Henry Cavill Wolverine, the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine with the missing hand, the one where he's on a cross in the middle of a field, comic accurate Wolverine when he was short. All that stuff is great. And at the end with the many Deadpools from all the different universes, that was fun, but if I'm being honest, I agree with, I mean, the movie itself acknowledges this. I agree that the multiverse, we need to stop with it. It's just becoming way too messy. And as soon as they introduced the multiverse, I said from the get-go, if you open this can of worms, there's no putting it back. It's going to be a mess. And look where we are now. It's a big mess. And that was one of the things I appreciated about this movie was Deadpool, obviously I think all the jokes had to be approved by Disney, but Deadpool was allowed to poke fun at Disney and Phase 4 and the multiverse. I mean, one of the lines was even referencing how bad Phase 4 and 5 was. He tells Wolverine, he's like, yeah, you're joining at kind of a low point. And that got a chuckle from the audience. Because it's true, that's why everybody laughed, because they're like, yeah, it's not been great for the past, 5 years. Minus Spider-Man No Way Home and Guardians 3, which I enjoyed. But everything else has been kind of a mess. But my biggest problem with this movie is how much the TVA is in it. I really, really don't like the Loki show. I've only seen Season 1. I could not bring myself to watch Season 2. But the moment that turned me off that show was when they treated the Infinity Stones like paperweights. When they just had a drawer full of them. I'm like, so what did we just invest 10 years of our lives in if they're just worthless, basically, to this organization? Not to mention most of the TVA doesn't make any sense, narratively. Multiverses have always been messy in the comics, and I don't think they translate well to TV or movies. And we've just been inundated with multiverse stuff, and it's just, I'm so over it. We had No Way Home, and then even years before that, we had Into the Spider-Verse, No Way Home, Across the Spider-Verse. Well, Across the Spider-Verse and The Flash came out around the same time last year, and they both had multiverse stuff. I actually saw a double bill of those two movies, and by the end I was like, I never want to see a multiverse story ever again. I'm sick of this. Then we had Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange 2, and all the TV stuff like Loki. I was hoping this movie would coalesce all the timelines back into one universe so we can stop with this crap. But I'm hoping, and I think this is what they're going to do, I think Secret Wars is going to do that. They're going to blow up the multiverse and they're going to converge back into one timeline and never do this again, please. And I think that's part of the reason why they ditched the Kang storyline and why we're not getting the resolution with Kang. Well, also because we saw him get defeated by ants. That was kind of stupid. But I would say maybe 80%, maybe 70% of the jokes land in this movie. I have noticed that with each Deadpool movie, they seem to break the fourth wall less and less. This movie, they really don't do it that often. I probably can count on one hand the times they do that. Maybe two hands. But I still think the first movie is still really tight. The script is very good. It doesn't overstay its welcome. The second one, not as good, but I'm actually thinking 2 still might be better than this movie. It's really hard to decide which one's better, if 2 or this movie's better. It's just the problem, the big elephant in the room with this movie is how much the TVA is in it. And, I mean, they kind of even pointed out some of the writing flaws in the movie, which is not the best thing to do. If you're going to break the fourth wall, to acknowledge your script being not so great is not good. But Deadpool even points out at the beginning, like, oh, look, there's the MacGuffin device. This bizarre, what do they call it? The Time Ripper? So that was just a bunch of gobbledygook nonsense that didn't really make any sense. The villain, Cassandra Nova, I thought was played well by, what is her name? Emma Corrin, I think is her name. She plays it well, but she really doesn't have much to do. You just, like, the final battle is just this stupid, it's not even a battle, it's just her putting her hands in this bizarre machine that's like somehow, like, we're not even sure what's going on there. It's like she's pulling on threads of time or something, and like you see the time stream is like screwing up, and then Deadpool and Wolverine have to stand in there and what looks like sacrifice themselves for it, but none of it's really explained, and I feel bad for people that haven't watched Loki. Well, I say that, I do envy the people that didn't have to sit through Loki, but I also feel bad for them because they're like, what on earth is happening? Who's the TVA? What is the sacred timeline? They even put the sacred timeline, they wrote that on the screen, and anyone that hasn't seen Loki is like, what the hell does that mean? Overall, there's also some pacing issues. The movie felt like there was several moments where it just lulled and nothing happened, and like, especially at the beginning, like when Deadpool goes to see Happy Hogan, which I didn't expect him to be in it, that scene felt like it went on forever, like felt like 10 minutes long. And it took like what felt like 30-40 minutes to actually get going and to kick into gear. But honestly, these days it feels like all that Marvel and Disney are relying on is nostalgia and cameos because they don't have the writing talent anymore. So with this, they were trying to pull a No Way Home again. So spoilers, you get a couple of really cool cameos. The moment when they all walk out, like that. The problem is though, I don't know how much rewatchability this movie has because once you have seen that moment, you know about it and it doesn't work a second time. So you got Blade walk out. That was, I feel my audience wasn't that receptive to that. I clapped, but it's just great to see him again. I didn't even think Wesley Snipes was acting anymore. One of the most interesting lines, though, in the movie was he says, "There's only one blade, and there's only one blade, and there will only ever be one." And then Deadpool looks at the camera and kind of nods. I'm wondering, does that mean they scrapped the Mahershala Ali blade and they're going to bring Wesley back? That would be kind of interesting. And maybe that's why they aren't really talking about it and why it's been in development hell for all this whole time, for like 5 years. Maybe Wesley was negotiating a contract to come back. I have no idea what's going on with that. But I thought that was interesting. And then, of course, you had probably the best cameo, which is Chris Evans' Human Torch. I knew they would do this. I just was wondering how they'd handle it. They handled it basically perfectly with the moment where he's like, Deadpool's like, he's going to say it. He's going to say it, Avengers. And then he says, flame on. It was great. He's not in it much. They kill him off because, I mean, they point out he takes a lot out of the budget. So that was cool. Jennifer Garner as Elektra was kind of cool, although there was a few people missing, I feel like, that could have been in this movie that weren't. Like, if they really wanted to dig deep for cameos. And if not for this movie, they probably will for Secret Wars. They're going to pull out all the stops for that movie. Try to get literally everybody ever in a Marvel movie in the past 20 years, including the Fox and Sony stuff. They're going to try everyone. Well, maybe not Sony. They still own Spider-Man, unfortunately. When Channing Tatum walks out, I was like, no way, dude. Because, like, that was like 10 years ago. They were talking about doing a Channing Tatum Gambit movie, and it never happened. So somebody was like, let's just put him in this movie, and that kind of got a cheer out of me. The biggest omissions, though, that I've heard people suggest were we didn't get any Punishers, and I kind of suspect that's because these days Marvel and Disney are kind of not big on the Punisher. They don't like him for stupid reasons. And, well, they say it's because Punisher, like, glorifies violence, but, I mean, isn't that what they do in, like, all their movies? That's what they did in this movie. And kind of glorifies vigilante justice. So I've only seen the movie once. I can't remember if they mentioned the Punisher being dead. I think they did say he was dead. And then Jennifer Garner references Daredevil being dead. So Ben Affleck, Daredevil's dead. I don't recall Johnny Storm referencing any of the other Fantastic Four members. It would have been nice to get a line about them. I don't think we got it. Again, I'll have to watch it again, but I don't think we got that. Magneto's dead, which is kind of interesting. And I'm wondering, is it the Ian McKellen Magneto, or is it the Michael Fassbender Magneto? Are they one and the same? Who knows? The X-Men timeline is completely screwed up. But I'm shocked we didn't get old Nick Fury, played by David Hasselhoff, or like some other cameos from someone like the 70s and 80s and even earlier, like live action stuff. Again, probably saving it for Secret Wars. But the one I wanted to see the most was Nick Cage be Ghost Rider again, even for 10 seconds. And maybe they'll back up the dump truck of money at his house for Secret Wars, but I really want to see that. Like, just give us Nick Cage. There was no mention of Ghost Rider at all. That would have been really entertaining. But notice I'm really only talking about the cameos because that really is the highlight of this movie. The story is not great. But again, I didn't expect some like master level storytelling. It would have been nice to have a story as tight as the first Deadpool. But these days, Marvel just, like I said, they don't have the writing talent, and they relied way too much on stuff from the Loki show. They had him go into the void. They had those weird sticks that like vaporize them, and that's where they end up. They made a really good joke about Furiosa. That was funny. Because that's what the movie looks like. It looks like a Mad Max movie at times. It was great to see Pyro again, although he gets his neck snapped. Who else did we get? We got Toad. I don't know if he was played by Ray Park this time, or whoever played him in, I think it was Days of Future Past. We got Azazel back from X-Men First Class. I think Lady Deathstrike was somewhere in the background from X2. So they were really scraping the bottom of the barrel of like getting the cheapest actors they could to keep the budget at a reasonable. I say reasonable, but it was still like over $200 million, which is absurd considering the first movie was made for way less than that. And what's interesting is you can see Deadpool's mask is less animated now, and it's probably to save on the budget. Because like the first two movies, his face was animated nearly the whole movie to show his facial expressions. But in this one, not very often. So when you boil down the plot, it kind of feels like that weird, stupid, like wolf fog thing that eats everything in the void. To me, that feels like Disney. That is Disney eating up the remains of the Fox IPs. That's what this movie was. Disney, if you think about it on a meta level, is kind of the villain of this movie. They're in the void eating all the leftovers. If the movie plays it safe a lot of the times, and yeah, they make fun of Phase 4 and how Deadpool is like, yeah, this multiverse thing just doesn't work, and it's just not working. It's just massive failure after failure after failure. And he's like, we should just stop this thing. And I 100% agree with him. But if they had the balls, and I knew they wouldn't have the balls, if they had the balls, this movie should have been Deadpool kills the MCU, and this is how you reboot. There's no way they would do it because there would be kids, and again, you shouldn't bring your kids to this movie, but there were definitely kids there. There would be kids upset watching Deadpool kill all their favorite heroes, but that's what I would have been funny, is him going around killing everyone. Kill all the remaining Avengers that were introduced the past like 5 years. Kill everyone, and then start from scratch. But there was no way in hell they were going to do that because that would require them admitting they made mistakes. But again, they let a few of those jokes in. They slid under the door in this movie. I apologize for kind of rambling. I didn't really have a structured script for this review. I just kind of wanted to talk off the cuff about it. So I'm kind of bouncing all over the place. And of course, I mean, probably let me think of my three favorite highlight. The opening where Deadpool's like, we're not going to desecrate the memory of Logan at the beginning of this movie, and then they do just that. He gets a shovel, he digs up Logan. We kind of expect it to be him alive, but then it just smash cuts to him sitting next to an adamantium skeleton, which is just hilarious. And then he kills all the TVA agents with Logan's bones, and then he uses the claws on himself. It was just great. And all set to Bye 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 by NSYNC. It was really funny. That's a highlight. But after that, like that's when the pacing kind of takes a nosedive for a while. That it opens very strong and then it lulls. Besides that, probably the scene in the van, I think the Honda Civic, where Deadpool and Wolverine are just beating each other to a pulp because neither one can really die. And then the other highlight is probably the scene with Nice Pool. I think that's what they call him, like nice guy Deadpool, the Ryan Reynolds with no mask, and he's got like a mane of hair, and he's got dog pool. That was funny. The whole time he wants him dead because he wants those golden pistols and the dog. And he uses him as a human shield, and oh my god, it was funny. So, like I said, most of the jokes land. That's really what you're there for, just to have a fun time with these two characters. Uh, uh, Something else that was just, I'm sure every fanboy freaked out at this. During that moment at the end when the music play, I think it's the Madonna song after the 5th time they've played it. Wolverine pulls up the cowl, and man, is it good to see that after all these years. Don't know why it took him this long, but finally and they did it right. It could have gone very wrong and looked bad, but now he pulls it up and it looks perfect. Like it should have always been there. And again, Hugh Jackman could be done after this. He could just drop the mic and be like, all right, I'm done again after I said I was done last time. But if I was a betting man, I think he would do Secret Wars and then be done. Like he might be in that movie and then drop the mic. It's a shame we never got to see him interact with the core Avengers that we all loved, like the 2012 Avengers. That would have been really cool. We got Spider-Man in there, but because of these stupid... I'm sure in a perfect world we would have got everybody in an Avengers movie. I mean, we're going to get that with Secret Wars, but it's not going to be written well. We all know it's not. It's just going to be a cameo fest. And it's going to be alternate versions of Iron Man and Thor, like multiverse versions. We are unfortunately never going to get a movie with the our version, our Earth's version of the core Avengers, the 6 core Avengers. Well, actually, scratch that. Add the ones added in Infinity War and Endgame. With Spider-Man and with Wolverine, or the X-Men and Fantastic Four. Frankly, it's too much to put in one movie, so that's probably why we'll never see it. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, now I'm rambling about the overall universe, not this movie particularly. But no, I recommend seeing it still, even though it has massive, massive plot problems. And it's a mess because it's revolving around the TVA and the sacred timeline crap, all that stuff that didn't work in Loki. But if you just want to see a couple hours of mostly funny jokes, Ryan kicking ass as Deadpool, Hugh being great as always as Wolverine, them quipping, gratuitous violence, vulgarity, then go. Just don't bring the kids. So this is still a recommendation. It's if I had to throw a number on it, it would probably be a 7. I don't think I can give it any more than a 7. It's just that the plot intrudes too much. If they were unchained a little bit, like that's what was good about the first two, is the first two are not... They kind of have golden handcuffs being involved with the MCU now, because you don't have as much freedom now with being tied to that. So, like, those first two movies could basically do whatever they want, and this movie, not so much with the TVA and being now part of the MCU and Disney, so they couldn't do whatever they want. I am hoping maybe one day we will get another Deadpool movie, and it's after this multiverse stuff is over, and Disney's like, hey, Ryan, you have full control. We are not going to... Well, let's be honest, that'll probably never happen because Disney owns it, but they'll give him much more control, like they did with James Gunn. James Gunn got a lot of control, especially with his second and third Guardians movie. But I think that's really all I have to say about this movie. So if you liked this, I mean, I wouldn't even call it a review, this discussion, leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Go check out the movie. I think you'll like it. And I will see you next time. Peace out.